Most mushroom gumbos cook mushrooms and roux separately. Double the oil, half the flavor. Today, we brown the mushrooms to load the fat, then build an extra dark roux in the same oil. One pot, one oil, more flavor. The fresh mushroom aromas, meaty taste, herbal complexity, and nutty notes are fat-soluble. They dissolve in oil. When recipes, mine included, call for draining that with kitchen towel, you're in essence draining flavors away. It looks like we're shallow frying, but we're merely using 110% oil of the weight of the flour we'll eventually use to make our dark roux, factoring in a 10% absorption rate of the mushrooms. We're using 3 kinds today, but you can use whatever you fancy. Here we have some chestnut mushrooms, which brings the earthy taste and slightly nutty notes. I like them bite-sized, but chunky, not sliced, so they hold their shapes better after long braising. Once they're beautifully golden on all sides, onto a wire rack, so we can drain and reserve the oil. It's interesting that if this were a duck recipe, they would always tell you to keep the duck fat, but mushroom oils tend to go down the drain. Next up, we have some shiitake, which brings a ton of umami. And we're batch cooking by type because they have different cooking time. Try not to crowd the pan too much, even though we're shallow frying. Most mushrooms are 80 to 90% water content, so we're evaporating the water content, concentrating their flavors at the same time. Next up, my personal favorite, king oyster mushrooms. Extremely meaty, both in terms of texture and flavor, when properly browned. This we'll have to do in batches. And we're maintaining high heat at all time. That is the key to minimizing oil absorption by the mushrooms. Now we allow the oil to cool down slightly, closer to boiling point, and we carefully add our drained fat back in. The lower temperature is so that any water content that comes with will not splash. We inspect the pot, top up if necessary. There's no shame just because we made a speech about 10% absorption. Now, extra dark roux. Flour goes in. We've covered the science of roux making in our Creole seafood gumbo video and the history in our Cajun video. Today, we go for the Cajun-style extra dark roux for the roasted, almost coffee-like smokiness to complement the earthy umami of the mushrooms. Once you've worked up a sweat and your pot looks like 70% dark chocolate, your room smells like the crust of a very tasty piece of bread, the Holy Trinity goes in to cool down the pot immediately. We have the onion, which will form our savory base and provide some subtle sweetness, celery for some fresh herbal notes, and slightly more green bell pepper than usual to give us that earthy sweetness, since earthiness is the direction we're going for. And we allow the heat of the dark roux to evaporate the water content of the Holy Trinity, concentrating its flavors, and for them to take on this coffee-like, beautiful, smoky note. Now we can really smell the coffee. Whew. Once calmness has somewhat been restored, crush a few garlic cloves. More umami, and later, some caramelized sweetness. Dry bay leaves, they go in slightly earlier than usual, just to activate their fat-soluble flavors, their pine-like, eucalyptus-like notes. Now we season generously with salt, black pepper, for some heat, and to enforce that earthiness, dry thyme. If you want to use fresh ones, add them towards the end so they keep their fresh, bright herbal notes. Cayenne for some clean heat. We're keeping this simple to focus on the mushrooms today, but you can use whatever seasoning you fancy. Now we simmer. Given how much concentrated flavors we have, we're simply going to use water. Like anything with roux, even extra dark roux, we start by adding the water gradually. Ice water to buy us more time, because as you introduce the liquid, the starch starts to swell, gelatinizing, thickening the sauce in the process. And the ice water would lower the temperature, buying us more time, preventing clumping. Now we simply let this simmer for 20 minutes for the flavors to melt and the roux to fully develop. After 20 minutes, mushrooms in to absorb the beautiful dark roux flavors we just built and to impart their water-soluble flavors, the savory umami. Good mix. Ten minutes. And here we have a very mushroom-forward gumbo. Scallion green, hot sauce, rice.